You know, for a very long time, we've been criminalizing women who stay in abusive relationships because, of course, we all condemn it. But the big question is, have we stopped to ask ourselves why some of these women stay in abusive relationships? Yes, we all do need love. And as research has shown so far, every woman is prone to abuse. Almost every woman goes through one way of abuse or the other. Some we consider minor, so we can ignore it. But we are always out to get at those who stay in there for longer periods. Women that we consider endure serious abuses, whether physical, emotional, financial, what have you. Some even stay till the point of death, and they actually die, they are killed. Kills them. Hello and welcome to the StandPoint. My name is Gifty Auntie. Today we are going to ask the question, why do women stay in abusive relationships? Because we are told that it's not as simple as we think it is. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll introduce our guest. Welcome back to the StandPoint. Well, if you just joined us today, the big question is, why do women stay in abusive relationships, sometimes for a very long time, maybe too long, and sometimes they actually die in it? Seated right opposite me is Dr. Juliette Tuakli. She is a medical doctor and a clinical psychologist, a married woman with children, and I don't know if she's enduring abuse. Definitely not. Good to have you on the StandPoint.
Thank you.
Next to Dr. Edwin, I have Dr. Juliette Tuakli. She is a public health physician and a pediatrician. Good to have you on the StandPoint. Mama Dramado. She is a queen mother in the Aflao traditional.
Yeah, I've taught you this for a long time.
Aflao traditional area, and she's also known in ordinary life as Abla Jifa Gomashi. She cooks banku for a living.
Yes.
She is a mother, a wife, and I'm not too sure if she's enduring abuse, but.
I'm coming to your house to cry.
Good to have you on the StandPoint. But Dr. Tuakli is a survivor, and she's here to actually tell us what happened, how she got out, and why she thinks, in fact, she is on a mission to encourage women, you know, who have come out. Because in the pre-discussion, she talked about how lonely it can be even when you get out. Now, Doc,
I stayed in the marriage for 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah, all told. I think when you look back, you realize there were pointers. And I remember a phrase that a very dear friend of mine, a psychologist, had said, and it would come back frequently: when people tell you who they are, believe them. But I think that we as women are socialized to focus on the relationship. So you use the word abusive relationship. We focus on relationship. Children who are part of that relationship, it becomes even more complex because you are trying to adapt everyone within the relationship to retain a relationship. And I think that, when I really look back, I realize that we don't marry lightly, most of us. And I think that you fall in love. Especially women. You fall in love with the person before or after the marriage. And you remember the good part of the person, and it sometimes is unbelieving to you that that same person is the person that they have become. And you keep thinking, no, this is not the person I married. There is somebody else there that I married. A while for you to really get it into your mind and to your head and to really accept the person I married is no longer the person I'm married to, and the person I'm now married to may be very bad for my health. That a lot of people watching now will ask is, this is a public health physician, she's a doctor, highly educated woman. Absolutely.
She actually schooled outside.
Absolutely.
Widely read. How could she endure that? How could she allow somebody, that's what we say most of the time, allow herself to be treated that way?
It's not a question of allowing. I think that when abuse first starts, it's not always physical. It can be very subtly emotional. You hit bad patches in marriages. You quarrel. Things go wrong. I mean, it's really understanding when the reaction to what is going on is a little excessive,
right,
and trying to understand why was it excessive, and was there anything you as a person did that could have fostered the excessive reaction. So I think the first feeling of disbelief is often followed by a period of questioning. That, am I getting this wrong? Am I really seeing what I think I'm seeing? Do I know this person? I mean, what is going on here? And I think that in my situation, I never really fully accepted the emotional part of the abuse until I overheard with my own 2 ears my ex-husband trying to inflict emotional abuse on my daughter. I heard him say something to her that was extremely confronted him, he denied it. But I heard it. And once I heard it, it was clear to me that, yes, there is clearly a progression. It's not just me anymore. It's now becoming my children. And I think that's what got me up in arms and this is enough.
Yeah.
And the question of education, I mean, it's book knowledge now. I mean, you know, yes, I'm a brilliant physician if I say so myself, but that doesn't make you emotionally brilliant always. And in fact, quite the contrary. There's a lot of pressure on professional women to be the good wife and to be the good mother, and therefore not to jump up at every little thing that happens and to try to manage it and to negotiate it and not to let others know because you are such a pillar in the society. There are lots of pressures, subtle pressures sometimes not so subtle. And all of these are what keep you trying to make sure that you really are sure about what you're doing if you're going to get up and do it. And I think that I left when it became very clear to me that I could no longer. Damage that was being inflicted upon the marriage, not knowing that after I left, the worst was to come, because that's in fact what happened. The worst came after I left. And if you look at the histories of women, oftentimes it's when they leave that they're really in danger. Yes.
Okay, we'll come back to what happened when you left. But, I mean, last week was International Women's Day, exactly a week ago today. We were all talking about the global theme was what? A promise is a promise, you know, end violence against women and girls, and now also. And most of the time, and, I mean, during this period, we were talking about why women, you know, endure it, why they stay and all that. That is the big question we ask all the time. But is it as simple as that?
It definitely is not. And I'm so glad she shared her story, because oftentimes, you see, I always tell my clients that imagine you were just in the market selling tomatoes or Kobe's and your husband beats you up. You don't mind running naked to seek shelter elsewhere. But imagine you are a professional woman as you are. It's difficult. And really, those are the ones we don't even reach with our advocacy and with our outreach because of who they are, how they are seen. I've had clients who wouldn't even tell me their surnames, because if they did, they would give away who they were in the society.
Exactly.
It can be that bad. So when it comes to leaving, it's not as simple as that. And like she said, sometimes it's even the threat they make, you dare leave and I'll kill you or I'll take the children from you. So you look at all of that. If you struggled all this time to make it this far and the man threatens to take your children away, maybe you can just stay in it till the children go to university and you leave. You try to rationalize it, you know, but we say that you don't understand what somebody is going through unless you've walked a minute or a mile in their shoes. And oftentimes, one of the first things that happen in an abusive relationship is self-blame. We tend to internalize what they tell us. So like she said, you try to figure out, is this something I did? You know, especially during the apology phase, you know, if you hadn't pushed me this far, I wouldn't have done this. So you see, it's because of what you did anyway. I'm sorry, and all the gift giving and all the love and attention and promises and everything come. But oftentimes, once it's happened, it can happen again. So if you don't take cues from there and you stay in it, then you need to find ways of coping.
Right.
And all sorts of people, pastors, doctors, lawyers, judges, I mean, all sorts of people are abusers and are abused. So we really need to take out who the person is or what the person does as a profession and take him as a human being with all the faults of a human being who is liable to this.
Mamaga, why?
Fear, insecurity, status, cultural expectation, traditional expectations, all the above. I think that's what it is that keeps us rooted in one spot. When the hurricane is here, when the rain is falling, when the harmattan is here, we stand there and have it beat us till we die. What we talked about during this program, I agreed to come because I left with a 1-year-old child from a relationship that was emotionally abusive. I know who fathered me or who mothered me, and they would have been shocked if I had stayed because of the way I was raised.
Right.
So I was determined that even though the child is 1 year old, I'm going, what is this? Who do you think you are? Why are you talking to me like that? Because I was never spoken to.
But even with you, it went on for a while until you reached a point where you knew that you had to go. Because
Yes,
it didn't just happen once and you left.
It's emotional abuse. And emotional abuse is not like physical abuse. You find excuses for each one on a different level. It doesn't start, as doctor was saying, it doesn't start as abuse.
Right.
It starts like, oh, something that just slipped. And then you say, oh, no, I'm not sure. I didn't hear right. And then it comes again. And then then you ask yourself, but why am I putting up with this? It may come early, it may come in the middle, it may come too late. In this relationship, let's say I was in it 1 year, and then I had the child 1 year. So it wasn't that long.
Right.
It wasn't that long for me. But I'm a very unsuppressible soul. And so it was difficult for me to just sit there and hear this being done to me. I went to secondary school when I was 11 years old. So I knew how to be on my own. So I was not afraid of leaving.
Right.
So I think that your level of tolerance is really how you were raised and how you perceive yourself. If you let one tilt more than the other, it can create an imbalance. And that imbalance in itself can make it difficult for you to take that bold decision that I'm leaving now, or I'll hold on a little bit more.
Yeah. Is that it? Is that it? Because we had a program last year with a young lady who is a chemical engineer, who reached the point of suicide. In fact, she attempted suicide 3 times. Wow. This girl was raised in a Christian home. Her father is a priest, highly educated, well-traveled and all that. But that's why she said she felt, she was like a trance. It wasn't happening to her because she would advise anybody not to endure this. But she was in there and was going through it.
Oftentimes, the emotional abuse starts to let you feel that you are nothing. That's the ultimate goal of being emotionally abused, to let you know that you are nothing. Sometimes they will tell you that you are nothing without me. Do you think any other man will look at you and tolerate you? I'm the only one who is nuts enough to put up with your nonsense and blah, blah, blah. So they really take you out one by one, piecemeal. With each abusive word, it goes away. I know the effects of emotional abuse, and they really can live with you a lifetime. Yes, and getting healed from that is a much longer process than physical. Most of the time,
one side though, when the emotional abuse starts, usually one of the other things that is done is to isolate you socially.
Oh, yes.
And it's when you are isolated socially that you get the full event of the emotional abuse.
Yes. Because then they get you to build your life around
That's
them.
right. Precisely.
Everybody else is cut off.
Precisely.
Everybody else is cut off.
There's always that isolation.
Yeah.
If you hear
You
it
start
all the
believing-
time.
Right.
Yeah,
Let me
it's
take
all
a
the
quick
time.
break and come back. You're watching the Standpoint. Yes, we are discussing the question, finding answers to the question. Why do women stay in abusive relationships for a long time and sometimes they stay till death? We'll be back. Welcome back to the Standpoint. Yes, of course, as you can hear, we're still discussing it, and I'm sure you're discussing it in your homes as well. Before we go on, I had an email, it's not an email, a message in my inbox on Facebook, and a young lady sent me this one. And from there, I'll come to Dr. Juliette Tuakli. She said, I grew up in a home where beating children was a normal, and she put a normal in quote, adventure. My mom would beat me with anything from shoes to cooking utensils to anything that she could lay her hands on. When I grew up, I dated my man for 11 years before we got married. Note, she wrote, my man, for 11 years before we got married. He was beating me, hitting me with things. I lost a pregnancy through one of such. I thought it was okay. I went on to marry him, and it got worse. He would beat me for anything, especially if he had to justify his actions. At a point, I had to fight back. This was after he had slapped my eye that it got red, swollen, and the skin black. We started beating each other in the house, and then he went around telling people that I was beating him. Funny. This was the physical abuse. Through it all, I survived emotional and psychological too. God is good. He saved me. Thank God we went to our separate ways, and I'm happy now. Keep up the good work. You are doing great. God bless you, Gifty. Cheers. And this is a woman who sent me a message in my inbox. Dated 11 years. The beatings, as you said, sometimes it starts before the marriage, but we ignore it.
Why she normalized it? She grew up in
She-
a home
exactly,
where she was
yeah.
beating with anything, and she thought it was normal. So what's different about somebody loving you, beating you with anything? So that for her was normal.
Because I get it, yeah.
That because my father has never beaten me, and he's alive. He never hit me. All he has to do is look at you or say something, and you know that you're ashamed. And so I can't put up with it. But if you were raised to think that it's okay, when you go into any relationship, you are more susceptible to putting up with it.
Right. But it gets to yes, Doctor, you wanted to
I would
say
still question this lady's situation, though, because to know in dating that this was an element
Yeah.
of the relationship and to still go into marriage, you know, I mean, that's a little bit
She said
extreme.
she thought it
She's
was
not
okay.
the only one. A lot
Yeah.
of people,
Yeah.
you
No.
talk to them and they'll tell you that, oh, yes, it started, but we thought it would get better because he promised. I can bet this man had assured her after the making up and the gifts and everything, oh, it won't happen again. And, you know, you said it yourself that for us really women, the emphasis is on the relationship. So we ignore the abuse and focus on the relationship. When where the man has promised and sworn, and sometimes people even coming to apologize on his behalf, that's what we want to hear. That's what we want to believe. So I'm not surprised at all. Maybe in my clinic, this is not a strange thing. A lot of people will tell you that the signs were there.
Yeah.
You see, but
And this traditional thing that we have, I beg you, this traditional thing that we have is, patano, compensate her. And then they give you some, if the man is rich, they give you something and you think that is it.
like when
Some actually make business out of it.
I said, a friend of ours, you remember our story?
Yeah.
And I said, but she should ask for something big. I'm telling you, it's a social construct. It's the way in which the society in which you grow up shapes your thinking.
Right.
But thank God for the standpoint, and that's why we are here. It is not right.
Yeah.
It is not right for your husband to even talk to you like a child. He's your equal. He's your partner. He's your classmate, if you want.
Right.
So if you start putting up with a language or talk that puts you in the place of a child. That's abuse.
Right.
Don't accept it. Society thinks that you should marry. What do you think? Society thinks that you should have a child. What do you think? Because you see, when I was being born, I don't think that my parents even knew that I'll be a girl. On that night that they went to the or morning or afternoon or whatever the case may be,
Right.
they had no idea
Right.
what I'll become. So you see, you must start believing in yourself that you are sent here for a purpose. It doesn't matter whether you're a Christian, a Buddhist, a Muslim, whatever. Some higher source, something brought you here. And that something will guide you to become whatever it is you are, whether you are married, whether you have a child, whether you are successful in your business or not. So don't take the putting down.
Right.
Don't accept the verbal abuse. Don't accept the physical abuse, because, you see, that in itself can thwart and kill your dreams.
Right.
These are dream killers. These are people who don't let your destiny get fulfilled.
Right. You know, last week on International Women's Day, we showed a program on the effect of divorce on children, and we had two young ladies share the experiences on how they have grown some kind of hatred, you know, if you like, towards their parents. One to the mother, the other to the father. And then there was a girl in the audience who was actually torn between, because she felt that she's the firstborn, but she's become a failure because she can't reconcile her parents and all that. And in fact, immediately after, during the program, Adolph Ewuku, good evening, Adolph. Adolph Ewuku sent me a text that sometimes divorce is the savior. Divorce saves you. But the fear of getting out, Doc, you talked about that. Sometimes getting out, if you don't prepare well, getting out becomes worse. Yeah. And that can kill you enough. Would you like to share a bit of light on it? Because you said with yours, it got worse when you got out.
Oh, well, you know, 3 years after I had left, my ex-husband arranged to invade my home with armed people and to assault me. And I remember my anger, number one, at being assaulted, but even worse was the cowardice, the extreme cowardice that I thought he showed. He didn't have the guts to come and attack me. He had to arrange to have a gang of 10 people with arms to come and break into my house and assault me. And I tell you, up until that point, I didn't despise him, but after that,
for it to seem as if there's a normal robbery or breaking?
Well, he used his filial relationship to the powers that be to accuse me of gun running, and so got a crack force from the Nima police station to come in and break down my door. Utterly despised him and held him.
That you were gun running.
I was gun running, yeah, like I've got nothing else to do, right?
Yes. Wow. Yes. So it can really, in some cases too, they actually stalk them.
Yes, obviously. I must have been stalked.
In recent times, when there are all kinds of gadgets now, people are putting tracking devices on their wives' cars and what have you. I mean, that's abuse. Lack of trust, I mean, cannot go that far. If you want out, just get out. And like Adolph said, getting out can help you. In fact, I'm so happy I left when I was that young, so I could start again. And I'm happy where I am now. I mean, it may not be perfect, but it's an improvement on what happened. We all have the social support, but we undervalue it out of fear, out of keeping up appearances, you are unhappy and you strut around like you have the best marriage with your hands in the air. And we know your story.
Sometimes that's
You see, what you feel inside
And
usually
the worst
shows
part
outside.
is those are the ones who are quick to judge others.
Exactly. Exactly. So I insist. Well, it's my opinion, and then like no,
and you're entitled to it. Of
exactly.
course. Yeah.
I'm saying that do not allow societal expectations to keep you in chains, in bondage.
Yeah.
Free yourself. Yeah. You are here for a purpose, and the God that set you here will ensure that you reach that destination. You are in the kitchen, and you can feel the heat. So when I'm sitting outside and advising you that, you're not alone. Other people have gone through worse things. And you know you're about, are you other people? You are you.
Dr. Tuakli is smiling. Did you hear that? Were you told that?
All the time.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you have to decide your rights. In fact, I'm very clinical about it. I always used to say you can't take Tylenol for someone else's headache. They're the ones that have to take it. So you let them take their medicine
But
and go.
how was it like trying to put your life together after that?
Well,
Because no matter what, you've lived life, a certain life, for a while. So coming back, sometimes you were, a physician, you were, doing well, you ran your own, clinic and all that. But sometimes where you are coming from, going back there is not easy because you've been raised to a certain level. And sometimes women look at that and like, am I going back to start all over again?
well, you have to love yourself. I
Because
do.
then you had your twins.
Well, my twins, I think I've been blessed with two wonderful daughters who are doing extremely well.
Right.
I've always had an open relationship with them. I've always spoken very honestly to them. I think that I've always been very honest to myself. And I think that you have to start from that point. You have to start from that standpoint of knowing yourself, loving yourself, and deciding what you want to do is going to be the best for you and yourself and any who are dependent on you. Right. And I don't know. I think I'm in a place right now where I'm very happy and very satisfied with who I am, where I am.
But you earlier on said that, people think that you can forget, but you never forget.
Oh, no, you don't forget. I mean, because a couple of people would say, oh, you really need to speak to him. Oh, he looks so wretched, you need to. And it's like, oh, that's got nothing to do with me whatsoever. That's not my problem anymore. Let others take care of that.
Right.
I have my own life right now. It's not what I perhaps would have ideally wanted originally, but the fact is, as I've said, after that incident occurred, I realized that this person was way beneath me in terms of their whatever. And, but then you laugh and you just move on. You did. It's passé.
Just as one of my daughters once said to me, Auntie Gifty, love is stupid. I never forget that.
See, when I left, I cried like I've never cried before. But now when I think about it, I ask myself, but why was I crying?
Process.
So it's okay.
I brought it in because
who are in abusive relationships and are afraid and have all the reasons in the world for staying?
My advice would be for them to really sit down and talk to themselves and ask themselves whether the marriage adds any real value to them as a person, them in terms of their dreams as a person, any added value to them as a parent, and, to be very honest, I think I find that, sometimes we as women, we're not always honest with ourselves. And I think it's a time to be very honest with oneself when one is trying to make a decision about leaving or staying in an abusive situation. And I think that the bottom line would be, if there is no added value, but you have to be really rigorously honest about that. And that's why it's a conversation I wouldn't even have with anyone other than yourself. And, one has to take the sum total of their dreams, their capabilities, education, social relationships, influence, whatever, their family, filial obligations, relationships, responsibilities. I mean, it's a very hard call, but it's important because one has to be able to, when one leaves, feel, I think, the way I felt, which was a whole weight had been removed from my shoulders. I didn't even know I was carrying it. And I think that you can only get to that place when you have gone out of where you're not supposed to be. You keep talking about divine order, and I think, yes, God does make us uncomfortable when we are not in the divine places that He has put out for us to be in.
Exactly.
But I think that we often don't recognize them until we leave.
We ignore it.
Until we leave. And so, it's finding maybe one family member or one friend, somebody. Sometimes you just need that person to give you that room to breathe for a few days whilst you catch your breath and decide what you're going to do. A pastor. It can be any number of people, but usually it's just one person ultimately
who will wake you
that
up.
will provide you that space that you need. But the conversation is within yourself, ultimately, and you have
because
to be
sometimes you always
brutally,
know, but you just
brutally honest, brutally honest. And the two words I would just always say, keep in mind: add value, question mark. Add value, question mark. Add value, question mark.
add value, question mark.